methods can be oriented for the accomplishment of certain predetermined applications of AP and GP. 1.1 Introduction. Quantitative technique is a very powerful tool. By using this, we can augment our production, maximize profits, minimize costs, and production methods can be oriented for the accomplishment of certain predetermined objectives. Quantitative techniques used to solve many of the problems that arise in a business or industrial area. A large number of business problems, in the relatively recent past, have been given a quantitative representation with considerable degree of success. All this has attracted the students, business executives, public administrators alike towards the study of these techniques more and more in the present times. Scientific methods have been man's outstanding asset to pursue an ample number of activities. It is analyzed that whenever some national crisis emerges due to the impact of political, social, economic or cultural factors, the talents from all walks of life amalgamate together to overcome the situation and rectify the problem. In this chapter we will see how the quantitative techniques had facilitated the organization in solving complex problems on time with greater accuracy. The historical development will facilitate in managerial decision-making and resource allocation. The methodology helps us in studying the scientific methods with respect to phenomenon connected with human behavior, like formulating the problem, defining decision variable and constraints, developing a suitable model, acquiring the input data, solving the model, validating the model, implementing the results. The major advantage of mathematical model is that it facilitates in taking decision faster and more accurately. Managerial activities have become complex and it is necessary to make right decisions to avoid heavy losses. Whether it is a manufacturing unit or a service organization, the resources have to be utilized to its maximum in an efficient manner. The future is clouded with uncertainty and fast changing, and decision-making, a crucial activity, cannot be made on a trial and error basis or by using a thumb rule approach. In such situations, there is a greater need for applying scientific methods to decision-making to increase the probability of coming up with good decisions. Quantitative technique is a scientific approach to managerial decision-making. The successful use of quantitative technique for management would help the organization in solving complex problems on time, with greater accuracy and in the most economical way. Today, several scientific management techniques are available to solve managerial problems, and use of these techniques helps managers become explicit about their objectives and provides additional information to select an optimal decision. This study material is presented with variety of these techniques with real-life problem areas. 1.2 Meaning. Quantitative techniques are those statistical and operations research programming techniques which help in the decision-making process, especially concerning business and industry. These techniques involve the introduction of the element of quantities, i.e., they involve the use of numbers, symbols and other mathematical expressions. The quantitative techniques are essentially helpful supplement to judgment and intuition. These techniques evaluate planning factors and alternatives and when they arise rather than prescribe courses of action. As such, quantitative techniques may be defined as those techniques which provide the decision maker with a systematic and powerful means of analysis and help, based on quantitative data, in exploring policies for achieving predetermined goals. These techniques are particularly relevant to problems of complex business enterprises. 1.3 Classification of quantitative techniques. We have many quantitative techniques in modern times. They can broadly be put under two categories: a. Statistical techniques. Statistical techniques. B. Programming techniques. These techniques are used in conducting the statistical inquiry concerning a certain phenomenon. They are including all the statistical methods beginning from the collection of data till the task of interpretation of the collected data. More clearly, the methods of collection of statistical data, the technique of classification and tabulation of the collected data, the calculation of various statistical measures such as mean, standard deviation, coefficient of correlation, etc., the techniques of analysis and interpretation, and finally the task of deriving inference and judging their reliability are some of the important statistical techniques. Statistical techniques also help in correlation too. Correlation is a statistical technique that can show whether and how strongly pairs of variables are related. For example, height and weight are related. Taller people tend to be heavier than shorter people. The relationship isn't perfect. People of the same height vary in weight, and you can easily think of two people you know where the shorter one is heavier than the taller one. Nonetheless, the average weight of people 5 feet 5 is less than the average weight of people 5 feet 6, and their average weight is less than that of people 5 feet 7, etc. Correlation can tell you just how much of the variation in people's weights is related to their heights. Although this correlation is fairly obvious, your data may contain unsuspected correlations. You may also suspect there are correlations, but don't know which are the strongest. An intelligent correlation analysis can lead to a greater understanding of your data. There are several different correlation techniques. The survey system's optional statistics module includes the most common type, called the Pearson or product moment correlation. The module also includes a variation on this type called partial correlation. The latter is useful when you want to look at the relationship between two variables while removing the effect of one or two other variables. Like all statistical techniques, correlation is only appropriate for certain kinds of data. Correlation works for quantifiable data in which numbers are meaningful, usually quantities of some sort. It cannot be used for purely categorical data, such as gender, brands purchased, or favorite color. Programming techniques. It can be defined as operational research or simply, OR, are the model-building techniques used by decision-maker in modern times. They include wide variety of techniques such as linear programming, theory of games, simulation, network analysis. The following chart lists the names of the important quantitative techniques. I. Methods of collecting data. 2, 3, 4, V, 7, 8, 9, X, Xi, 12. Classification and tabulation of collected data, probability theory and sampling, analysis, correlation and regression, index number, time series analysis, interpolation and extrapolation, survey techniques and methodology, ratio analysis, statistical quality control, analysis of variance, I, 2, 3, 4, V, 7, 8, 9, linear programming, decision theory, theory of games, simulation, A. Monte Carlo techniques, B. System simulation, waiting line, queuing theory, inventory planning, integrated production models, network analysis, PERT, parametric programming, G. The theory of replacement, etc., statistical inferences and interpretation. 13. Theory of attributes, others, A. Nonlinear programming, B. Dynamic programming, C. Search theory, D. Integer programming, E. Quadratic programming, F. 1.4 Role of quantitative techniques. These techniques are especially increasing since World War II in the technology of business administration. These techniques help in solving complex and intricate problems of business and industry. Quantitative techniques for decision-making are, in fact, examples of the use of scientific method of management. Their role can be well understood under the following heads. I. Provide a tool for scientific analysis. These techniques provides executives with a more precise description of the cause and effect relationship and risks underlying the business operations in measurable terms, and this eliminates the conventional intuitive and subjective basis on which managements used to formulate their decisions decades ago. In fact, these techniques replace the intuitive and subjective approach of decision-making by an analytical and objective approach. The use of these techniques has transformed the conventional techniques of operational and investment problems in business and industry. Quantitative techniques thus encourage and enforce disciplined thinking about organizational problems. 2. Provide solution for various business problems. These techniques are being used in the field of production, procurement, marketing, finance and allied fields. Problems like, how best can the managers and executives allocate the available resources to various products so that in a given time the profits are maximum or the cost is minimum? Is it possible for an industrial enterprise to arrange the time and quantity of orders of its stock such that the overall profit with given resources is maximum? How far is it within the competence of a business manager to determine the number of men and machines to be employed and used in such a manner that neither remains idle and at the same time the customer or the public has not to wait unduly long for service? And similar other problems can be solved with the help of quantitative techniques. 3. Enable proper deployment of resources. It render valuable help in proper deployment of resources. For example, PERT enables us to determine the earliest and the latest times for each of the events and activities and thereby helps in identification of the critical path. All this helps in the deployment of the resources from one activity to another to enable the project completion on time. This techniques, thus, provides for determining the probability of completing an event or project itself by a specified date. 4. Helps in minimizing waiting and servicing costs. This theory helps the management men in minimizing the total waiting and servicing costs. This technique also analyzes the feasibility of adding facilities and thereby helps the business people to take a correct and profitable decision. V. Assists in choosing an optimum strategy. Game theory is especially used to determine the optimum strategy in a competitive situation and enables the businessmen to maximize profits or minimize losses by adopting the optimum strategy. V. They render great help in optimum resource allocation. Linear programming technique is used to allocate scarce resources in an